name is Ben Langsfeld, as you said. I am a group creative director at Buck, and I've been working at Buck since the beginning, back in 2003. I remember we were working there were 10 of us in a small little office in Koreatown in LA, and now we are 250 people and growing. And we are holding passports from 26 different countries. We've got offices in 3 cities, as he said, New York, Los Angeles, and Australia. And we've got a lot of room to play, lots of square feet. For those of you who aren't familiar with us, we are a global creative company. Since 2004, we've been building a home for some of the most amazing, talented dreamers, makers, and doers. We are super collaborative, and everything we do has a ton of fingerprints on it, and we like it that way. And we make stuff like this. So this was part of our most recent rebrand, and that's sort of what I'm here to talk about with you guys today. It was a massive effort across all of our studios, and I had the opportunity to lead it, which was awesome. But what was so interesting about it wasn't necessarily what we made, it was the process, and I think it's really much a reflection of who we are as a studio. The challenge is that everyone at Buck is super curious in a lot of different things, and we're interested in pretty much everything. We've always thought of ourselves as style and process agnostic, and we're just always looking for a better way to do it, whatever it might be. And that curiosity is contagious. And so for me, it was about creating a brand that we could have all of our studio connect to in some way, and then that way we could do it all together. But before I get started, a little bit about me. My curiosity has led me to my tool of choice, which is Cinema 4D, and I predominantly use it for pitching and sketching at this point. Super interested in geometric forms, systems. There was like an early brand exploration. Super into cloth and dynamics, a lot of technical live action, soft bodies, look dev. But as I've been there longer, I'm a little bit more removed from the box, so my newest tool of choice is I've taken this super deep dive into modular synthesis. So this is sort of my new sketchbook. But as far as Buck is concerned, my curiosity has led me in a ton of different directions throughout my career. My curiosity in our culture had led me to take ownership of all of the retreats and sort of get-togethers that we've had over the years. This one, we went to a camp up in the Catskills in New York, and all the offices came together. We mingled for a few days. It was magical. My fascination with interiors and our production process led me to taking ownership of building out all of our offices that we've ever had. I think we have like 4 in New York at this point. So that's been a huge challenge to try to weigh that balance between an open floor plan, communication, and being actually able to get some work done. But my most unique curiosity, I've always been fascinated with the way we as Buck present our work, whether it's in pitch decks, presentations, or our website. In fact, I've taken ownership of every Buck website that we've ever made. Here's an old one I dug up that we built fully in-house. This is one of the first ones we built in-house, which was really exciting. And I really liked this one. It had a lot of legs. It lasted a while. But eventually, it just started to show the work a little bit small. Screens had gotten bigger, so we had to update that. And that was the big thing we figured out in this version of the website. Was dedicating more screen size to things. But there was an issue here, in which case the projects were all presented in the same way. There was always a movie at the top, and then there's some images, and then some look dev, and some process stuff. So it was very formulaic, and the jobs that we've been taking on recently have been, really broadening in terms of what we're doing. And so sometimes there's no movie in our delivery. So it seemed to become a bit of a challenge. So we set out on the new site to achieve that, and we knew we wanted to tell stories a different way, and we knew that we wanted to have this sort of pinboard homepage that showed a little bit of a glimpse into our life at Buck and sort of what we're up to. So trying to sing a little bit of like what we're doing rather than what we've done. And it was working, but we found that all of the projects were, again, like we weren't really showcasing them and living up to the potential of their projects. And a lot of people called it a motion graphics graveyards of sorts. So it was like really not celebrating the work. And we even had some people in the company asking, do we even need a website? So we were like, all right, let's take a step back. Let's go pencils down, and let's just think about this for a second. Well, we realized it wasn't necessarily a website problem. It was like a brand and positioning problem. We needed to sort of tell people and show people and behave differently to show and signal the change that we've gone through in the last couple of years. So we made a brief, and we had to do a lot of these things, show our growing capabilities, have a flexible format, and also sort of expand and be a little bit more personal as we go into our own projects. So we did an audit. Looking at color, we wanted to sort of see how we use color, and we used all of them, so that didn't really help. And then our logo, we've always loved it. It's been our little trusted friend through the years, but we started to use it in a lot of different ways, because when people got free time, we just wanted to experiment with it. And we realized we were just really going crazy, and the more we've been doing a lot of brand work, we're always telling our clients, like, consistency, consistency, consistency. And it was obvious that we just hadn't gotten our own memo. So we started with a blank page. We wanted to sort of see and have an open mind as to like what it would be if we were much different, and we looked very different. So we tried it, and it felt like a revolution. There was some interesting stuff, but it really didn't tie back to some of our roots and what had gotten us there. And I think we still held on to that, which was this guy. We are named after Buckminster Fuller. His design philosophies are still super relevant to us today. We think of him as like the ultimate generalist. He was a thinker and a doer. It was really hard to label what he does, and that's a lot like what we think of ourselves. But what sticks with me about him is his passion for systems and this idea of synergy, of like working together. So our logo always was sort of built on this framework of a system of formal shapes that come together, representing all of the unique perspectives and all the views of the artists that work at our studio in a way that shows this sort of like, coming together. And here they are. Here are the shapes that we decided to choose for our new logo, and when put together, they make this. So it was really a culmination in showing this diverse collective coming together. So we tested it against some of our work. We have a wide range. We're super playful, but we're also pretty serious sometimes, so we decided to make sure it was going to work in that setting. We also need to make sure that we could come up with a way to use color in a way that was meaningful to the work, so we tested it against all of the different colors of our work, and picking a color from it to put next to the logo all worked really well. And then a big moment for us was talking about behavior, and we developed this idea of a brand behavior continuum where we need to both support our client work, since that's sort of like one of our biggest focuses, but then also lead and be a little bit more expressive and irreverent for the work that we're sort of venturing into, like our own projects. And so as we set out to do all of our communication, it was so helpful to just to have this continuum to work across. So everything we made fit perfectly within there, and you could really define a brief easily and effortlessly to an artist who wanted to take ownership of something. And so something like our pitch decks, they need to sit back. We're often very much embedded inside of companies as a sort of extension of their team, and so we need to sort of almost become their brand. So we pick a color from their brand and we pull back and we sort of let the work be forward. Our collateral, very much straightforward. It's sort of like in the middle. And then the website, we were able to open up a little bit, and we sort of answered the question of, do we need a website, by saying yes, because it's it's really the only way for us to take control of the conversation. We can really show the work the way we want, we can talk about the work we want to be doing, and we can also attract the kind of people that we think are going to fit into our culture. A brand expression can be a little bit more adventurous. We'd come up with a bunch of like starter color palettes so that when we're doing our own work, you can just sort of have somewhere to go that's easy, effortless. And then when we get into our own content, sky's the limit. You can do whatever you want. This is from our app Slapstick, if you guys haven't seen it. So as you can see, it falls across the continuum from left to right, like being more supportive, and then also leading and being more expressive. And that was really helpful when we were doing things like the brand expressions for the launch, where we knew we had some guidelines, some rules, some like sort of lanes for artists to play in, and so they could take their own curiosity and really run with it. So you can sort of see an example of that. On the left, we've got a more rigid, talking about the shapes, talking about the coming together logo sort of build up. And then on the right, you've got using those same forms, but abstracting them, being a little bit more playful with them, and essentially having a lot of fun in a controlled way. We chose Mabry because we loved that it also worked across that continuum. And it also had this glyph set that we were super into because it could really add a lot of personality, and we ended up even building out all of a whole new set of glyphs that we could use in our communications and have fun with them. My favorite is the bottom right here. It says Atom or Cookie, either one. We could use them for UI stickers. These might show up on Giphy or around our website. But then one day it happened. We were about 2 weeks away from finishing the website, and I get this document from an artist who had essentially redesigned the entire website and based it on this 4-column grid that was super tied to our 4 letters of our logo, and it was just awesome. So as we usually do with the best ideas, we pivoted and we went back to square one on the build, and we went in this direction, and this became the backbone of the entire system. And we knew that another, part of it is like telling those unique stories I was talking about earlier, that we knew that the people closest to the work were the ones that were going to have to tell those stories. It couldn't just be like one member of a team or someone else. It had to be the creative leads on every project. And a couple of artists really identified that was going to be a pain point. That was going to be a little bit of a clog in the process. So they built this prototype in Figma where we were able to all work in this document at once with a few key examples and this sort of list of modules that they could use to tell their own story. And there were some points where we had like over 40 creatives in here digging around, crafting their stories, asking for help, giving feedback. It was like the most magical thing. You can actually spy on people in Figma. You can see what they're working on. It's so fun. But it was just like a testament of how much people cared about this, that they would go ahead and build an entire prototype just because they felt like they needed to on top of their original workload. We had artists who were so fixated on like the rules and the standards that they built out like 100-page guidelines that include like sonic guidelines so that everything's done in the key of B, obviously. We made toolkits, pitch decks, contracts, bids. We made a brand center. Everyone sort of took it on themselves to go contribute and be part of this process to build this brand. It was beautiful. This is a social media toolkit. We know that there's not a lot of time in between our projects, so we had to come up with a system that we could really flexibly have conversations and stories and tell unique stories and come up with a run of show that could really help communicate things quicker and faster, even ripe with a grid and some image guidelines that snaps to the grid. It was awesome. And then, we wanted to find a way to feature and sort of celebrate our talent and our artists, and so we came up with some ways to do that, as well as ways to show our process in R&D, since a lot of that had sort of come down off of the main project pages because we were telling stories a little differently. But this was a way for us to really showcase that in a thoughtful way. We even had artists who were so in love with it, they wanted to make like a physical manifestation of the brand. And so we're calling this the rotator. And it's this sort of wheel that you can, it's tactile, you can rotate, it feels amazing when you do it. Here's some early prototype of them playing with it. It can kind of like adjust the playhead of an animation and sort of see it coming and going in real time. We've also, another artist took the Mabry glyphs and started playing with physics in OpenGL and got it really playing really nicely, and that became part of the rotator as we sort of got things immersed in there. So the most the most beautiful part about this project for me wasn't necessarily what we made. It was really how we made it and the process that we went along, and that we had all of our artists who were so connected to it that they could sort of use their own individual personalities to make what in the end was a brand that really felt like us and by us. So I'll just end with a little bit of what we made. Awesome. I'm Ben Langsfeld. Thank you.